Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are so pleased to see so many people here tonight. I wanted to take a moment to thank the four groups that came together to make this panel possible. So AWA+D, Women in Architecture, AIALA, J.E.D.I Committee for AIALA, and SoCal NOMA. It's great to have the opportunity tonight to share with you all the fabulous work that Alicia is doing and all these ladies are doing. So without any further ado, I will introduce Alicia Ponce and she will take us away for the evening.
Hey, everybody. I'm Alicia Ponce, architect registered in Illinois and Wisconsin. I am a business owner. I own AP Monarch. I am nearing my quinceañera, 15 years in June, and the founder of Architina, and the creator and co-author of Latinas in Architecture. And because of this, this is happening, and never in my wildest dreams did I think that, this would be happening, but it's just proof that this space was needed, the conversation was needed, and it's been a pretty incredible ride to continue meeting more Latinas in architecture and those that support us, our allied professionals. So I am so happy to be here, and that I met Carmen, and through our virtual lives now, we're able to connect even more, and spread our message, our voice, and embrace it along the way. So thank you for having me and just creating this space again. And let's talk, let's talk Latinas in architecture.
Great. Okay, so I'll start with intros. I'll just start naming. So the way we'll do it is I will call out the first person and then you get to call out the next person, and that way we can go through all five of our panelists for the evening. So I will start with Monty Espino, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Monty Espino. I am a California registered architect. I'm currently in Oakland working as an affordable housing real estate developer. Actually, I just switched over a few months ago. But before that, I was working at Abode Communities as a designer. So it's really interesting to be on the other end of the work. And yeah, I'll pass it off to Alicia.
My name is Alicia Morales. I am the founder and business owner of AM Design Studios here in the city of Montebello. I am a SciArt graduate. My business has been going on for 6 years already, right after graduation. We do residential and commercial work. Currently working still on my license, but that's the goal I am pursuing. Mexican American, my parents are from Guanajuato, so Latina in architecture. And I pass it on to Yvette.
Hi, everybody. I'm Yvette Diaz. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic and have been living in Los Angeles for the past 12 years or so. I am a senior strategist at Gensler. I have been at Gensler also for the past 6 or 7 years. And what I do is I combine my background in architecture with business strategy and research. I try to understand the client's business goals and my role as their trusted advisor. But I'm really passionate about user research and analytical process from a multidisciplinary perspective to deliver projects that support not just the business, but also the communities that they support, that they are in. So that's me in a nutshell. And I pass it on to Tesla.
Thank you, Yvette. I'm Tesla Collier. I was born in New York and actually moved to Honduras when I was 8 months. And I grew up in Honduras until I was 25. So I did my whole career in architecture in Honduras. And then I came to LA in which I started from the very bottom as a drafter and made my way up. So I was in a lot of the phases of projects. Now I am a design technology manager at Los Angeles office in Gensler. And in my role, I do provide design technology leadership for the office, studios, and projects. My focus is really promoting, implementing, and ensuring the deployment of global and regional processes by elevating design technology in the Los Angeles office. A little bit about me. I did graduated with a bachelor's in architecture from the Universidad Autónoma de Honduras. And then I followed with a master's in interiors design from UCLA Extension Program. Over 20 years, I've been in the AEC industry, and I do have a wide range of experience in construction design. And this includes various practice areas such as healthcare, aviation, civics, mixed use, and also transit projects. I do have a passion on mentoring and spreading the knowledge. I love design technology, and I really like to apply it to a full integrated architectural process. And along that, mentoring, especially younger generations, to see the growth in our future leaders. Fun facts about me: I learned to paddleboard this summer, and I do make jewelry over the weekends. I do have 4 girls, and I enjoy outdoor activities. And I am going to pass it to, okay, I think everybody speak. Monica, right?
Yeah, I'm last.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. My name is Monica Rodriguez. I'm born in LA, but my parents moved from here in the early 60s from Mexico. So I guess second generation Mexican American. I'm a senior associate and a senior project manager at KFA. I work mostly on multifamily housing, but where I truly get fulfillment is affordable, low income, affordable housing. And so that, and then I also, to kind of get other creative juices flowing, I also do stand-up comedy. And so, yes, follow me. That's it, Carmen, right?
Yep, I think we got all 6 of y'all. So okay. So Alicia, how do you want me to do it? You want me to jump in and get things going, mix it up a little?
Yeah, but before, I just like to share like why Latinas in Architecture was created. And I started Arquitina in 2020. So for those of you who don't know what Arquitina is, it's now has become a national nonprofit that whose mission to raise the 1% of licensed Latina architects. And we started it with 16 Latina architects in the Midwest area in Chicago. And now we're all over the country and just growing and growing. And it was because of my personal journey of going through the examination process, just years of going through it. Being Latina, I'm also Mexican American. And for those of you who have read the book, a common theme is family, and how our family is important to us and how our family does impact that licensing journey. And then that little number that just, it bothered me, when I was studying for the exams, and I felt lonely during my professional career, and actually in college, right? When you're going through the university, if you studied here, there aren't many people that look like us. And so it was that mentorship, or that, you look for people like you, so that, because those are the people that encourage you or that understand you. And so I just felt lonely when I was in corporate America, in firms, and it was that less than 1% number during my whole studying journey that I just didn't understand why. Why was it less than 1%? I know my personal journey and the barriers and challenges that I had as daughters of an immigrant or as a female. And so that's what really pushed it, right? And so I started asking around, and here we are. And now it's like, oh my God, there's like 50 of us. Wait, there's 60 of us. And so that's what I'd like to, share, starting the conversation. It was based on my personal journey. And then I found out, tons of similarities with all of these other women. And it took me 15 years to pass the exams. That's my journey, and I embrace it. I was single with no kids when I started. I was married and pregnant with my second when I finished. So, and that's okay. And that's what we tell the women in Argentina. Your journey is your journey. We're here to help you. We understand you. And the point is just to keep moving.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the intro and giving us sort of a little bit of a picture of where everything came from. So first question, I threw out a couple of questions to you ladies this morning, and I think this segues well into the first one, which is, why did you all choose to make architecture your profession? Feel free to jump in all at once. Like a good Latin party should be.
On Zoom, it's difficult. But I think I was the different one, or maybe not. I knew when I was 6 years old. I knew, and it was me driving with my father to a construction site. And while he was talking, I was just mesmerized by the machines moving dirt and the smell. We can close our eyes and smell that freshly poured concrete. It was just like, this is what I want to do. That was it. I never turned back.
I'll go next. I say this as a joke, but I think it's true. My first memory of my surrounding was when my oldest sister would kind of give me time out, because she's 11 years older, and she'd put me in a corner in the dining room, like literally standing there. And I would say to myself, if I were an architect, I could design round houses with 0 corners and never be put in a corner. But it wasn't really until high school, when I was kind of my junior year, and I was like, well, what do I want to study? And I was being pushed to do pre-med by my other sister. And then I realized I don't want to do that. And so luckily I had my brother as one of my mentors. And when I told him I wanted to study architecture, and he was a USC alumni, and he was like, okay, well, let's go to School of Architecture and ask what you need to work on, focus on. So.
Cool. I'll share my experience. Well, in my case, my family always has pushed me to follow my dreams, and not getting an education was never an option in my house. So whatever it took, whether it was through scholarships or whatever, it was going to happen. So that was always in my mind. But what I wanted to be, I had always been intrigued by how spaces were made and how they affected people in different ways, and how I personally experienced spaces when I was a child. And I remember being in museums and understanding a blank canvas in the back, so the art would pop out, and just the difference and contrast between that and going to a church and feeling very small, because that is the purpose of a specific building. And just I started to get that curiosity about why spaces have or create certain feelings for people and experiences, and those experiences can be life-changing sometimes. And I don't know, I've always felt that between my family's encouragement and support, and having that passion of curiosity for the built environment, it was just a no-brainer. Of course, I think that once you start the architecture profession and you go through the design studio years, and you see, well, there's much more to this than I thought. That's, at least for me, that was my first falling in love really with the profession, and just going through the processes of design and the juries and critics and just diving into it. So I think the whole journey has been fascinating from the moment of curiosity to the achieving of finishing the profession and getting into the professional world then.
I can go next. I think if you were to ask me this like when I was 18 or something, I would have given you like a romanticized answer of like, I really wanted to be an artist, but it like I wanted to do something practical. But I think like really looking back on it, it's just because I've always been such a curious person and I've always been like really interested in exploring different cities and like different spaces. And I always was the kid that would like run away from my mom and like just like go explore the store and get in trouble because I was like exploring the back room of the store or like the bathroom or something. And I think architecture is like the biggest way to do that and like just like a big puzzle in a way. So I don't think I could have given you this answer when I was choosing what to do, but I think looking back on it now, that's like really the reason why. But the basic answer, right? It's like it's art, but it's also practical and it's real life.
So next, for me, it started in high school with the curiosity to look at floor plan books at the bookstore and buy those floor plan books and just stare at them and see, hey, how do they make these floor plans? And with the curiosity also to make things with my hands, to create using my imagination and being able to express ideas in a physical object, with toys or with things that I would make or a drawing.
That's so awesome. Actually, my story was a little different. I wanted to be a doctor. And my mom told me that's not a profession for women because they work around the clock and they're always on call. That's what she told me. And then that I should be an architect because I was good in math and I was very artistic, right? I didn't even know what an architect did when I enrolled in the architectural program in the University of Honduras. I went to my first class. I didn't know, they gave me a list of things to buy and I needed to buy a ruler, a T ruler, and I didn't know what it was used for, what would I do with it. And I didn't do good in my first class of doing drafting, like technical drafting. And I started questioning myself, I don't think I'm good at this. So then I went and did a test, an aptitude test. They offer them for free. It's a public university. So I went to the science, health and science building, and they gave it to me. And there was only one option, architecture. I'm like, oh, I guess my mom is sort of right? I just gonna follow what she said. And I truly fall in love with the career. I was mesmerized with design, with the structures, with detailing. I was always, it was really like fascinating because I fall in love not knowing what I was gonna do. So it was kind of like a learning journey on that one. And it was really interesting. Later in life, I ended up doing hospitals. And I was like so curious how the operating room was doing and what they were doing because I had that curiosity on the sciences. So I did a little bit of labs and a little bit of healthcare somewhere in my career. And I think I did fulfill that little dream that I had in that one. But that was my journey. I didn't actually dream to be an architect. And now with design technology, I'm able to help with technology tools to help all of you, develop the new architecture, which is using technology, your computers, your programs and such. So very blessed that I was in the right path. I didn't get detoured and I fell in love with it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you all for sharing your experiences. So now we're going to go a little deeper. I think we're going to go a little bit more into the gist of having this conversation specifically around Latinas and their experiences. So what do you guys all think makes the Latina experience in architecture so unique? What do you think it sets it apart from the experiences of others? Shall I call on someone and make it fun? All right,
do it.
Alicia Ponce, I'll put you on the spot first.
Okay. That's a loaded question because and we all have different experiences, but so many things come to my mind. One that we can possibly relate to is, as women and as Latinas, there's the wage gap, right? There's the wage gap that we know exists, not just in architecture, but generally in jobs, right? So you come out of school and you get your job, and chances are you're not getting paid what your white male counterpart does. There are, there are so many other things, and I could explain why. One of the reasons why I started my business is because, one, I wanted to pursue something that I truly believe in, and that's to design sustainable architecture. And through my experience at working at firms, it's something that I really was inquired about and asked about and wanted to be a part of. And I just raised my hand. Can I work on this type of project? Can I work on this type of project? And it really didn't come. And another reason why, how I felt is like in the workplace, now this is me, nobody else looked like me, but there were other ethnicities, other races, there was the Chinese woman, right? But to our bosses, we were the same person. And he literally said, oh, well, they both have long black hair. So, these are little tidbits of that we experience that not necessarily others. And it just kind of like, you're just there to do your job. You just want to do architecture. You just heard 5 other stories of why they chose architecture and, why they impact the built environment. However, sometimes we hear those comments. And that happens, that is peppered throughout our university experience, through our work experience. So I gave 2 examples. I could keep going, but I want the others to answer.
Ms. Monica, I know we've talked about this before, but what are your thoughts?
Well, definitely the wage gap is something, and being involved with hiring at my office at KFA, you realize, and I think women in general will always kind of undershoot themselves. And what they're asking for a salary, same person, same, even, just the male counterpart is overshooting their salary ask. And it's almost like, and I think Latinas are even more, we're almost more humble about ourselves, and we don't like to celebrate ourselves. We don't like to boast. I feel very uncomfortable when I'm talking about and like my accomplishments. I don't feel like, that's not my safe zone. I feel vulnerable, and I feel someone at some point is going to take it as me being arrogant and put me down somehow. So there's that. And then also, it's definitely a male dominated career or profession. And even it's tough when even like even within people don't recognize that I'm just as much an architect as my male cousin that's also an architect. And it's those kind of things, and it's kind of being not given the chance to even like prove yourself, kind of. So I mean, just kind of, like in Latinas especially, like, but can you cook? And I'm like, can I cook? Like what? Like, do I not feed myself because I'm an architect now? Are you kidding me? I'm like, I'll make some carne en chile verde tomorrow. Let's do it.
I'm in, invite me. Bet, what do you think?
Well, I think that the challenges that you ladies have mentioned are pretty much real, and all of us, or most of us at least, have experienced it to a certain level. But I think in terms of our experience, I want to look at a little bit also at the positive and what we bring, because our experiences within their own are unique. And I think that we have just a lot of opportunities, to break stereotypes, to be a role model for younger generations, to mentor others. So I think that I would love to just turn it into a positive and start looking at our challenges as, okay, now let me see how can I, take my learnings and my struggles and bring them to the next generation and help them navigate the hard, road that it is sometimes. So for us, not just, like Monica and Alicia mentioned, by being women, but by being a minority within the women. So yeah, it's 1% of men, Latinos are licensed, and less than that is women. So we have to do something, and yeah.
No, thank you for mentioning that, Yvette. And you read my mind. Of course, there are positives, and for me, the highlight of my career, a highlight of my career was, being bilingual is very, it's yet another skill. And I had the opportunity to work with Santiago Calatrava on a design competition, because my dream to pursue sustainable architecture in 20 years, I made a name for myself here in Chicago. And when the design competition for the airport was happening, I worked with him. And there were about 50 people on the design team, all different disciplines. And I want to say 2 of us spoke Spanish, and the rest did not. And so when I introduced myself, I spoke Spanish to him, and it was like he said, he's like, oh, habla español, like I can, podemos hablar así más como en familia or something, and it was like this, it made the experience so much more sweeter. So, I was called upon because of my expertise in sustainable architecture. And then, this is my culture, the way that I was brought up to speak Spanish, where in other times it's like, it wasn't very welcome to speak Spanish. So there are positives. Of course they are.
Monty, what do you want to add to this chat?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like touching upon what Alicia was saying earlier. It's like, it's pretty lonely to be a Latina in architecture. Like I went to a school that was predominantly Hispanic and Asian, I would say. And then I went to college where it was like predominantly white, and also it was a lot of men. Not that it was mostly men in the architecture studio, but in general. So it was a little bit of a culture shock. And not only is it a culture shock and you're feeling like I'm one of very few, but then you have to like overcome, not so much in school, but maybe in offices, you have to overcome some preconceived notions of what Latinas are. And there's a really big spectrum, right? It's like there's a loud Latina, and then there's like the quiet, humble Latina. And so it's like, where do you lie in that spectrum? And like, how do you not just kind of like, I don't know, like, not that you're trying to avoid that, right? Because you should be the person that you are, but it's like, not only are you trying to navigate that environment, but you're also like one in a few, so that you don't have too many people that you can kind of like talk to about, or that you can just kind of like share the same experience. So it's really nice when you do find that person, and it's extra special when you find those people that are in the same line.
Alicia?
For me, the Latina experience in architecture is unique because you are able to tend to the families with necessities for their families, and also the communication, the bilingual communication between the contractors and the city requirements and so on, and also being able to show our inherited Mexican Latin roots, the culture for the benefits of the community as well.
Yeah, I would say definitely that. Sorry, real quick, the job sites, right? Like you'll be like the plumber, and you're like, hey, Cristobal, whatever, and they're like, oh, Monica, señora, señorita. And I'm like, there is that. That's nice.
Kind of along those lines too, I was thinking, I know like a lot of the Latinas in architecture that I know, a lot of like their dads or uncles were like construction workers, right? So you have that like shared experience of like people who kind of like taught you a little bit of what they know, who like in my eyes are also architects, but it's a different way of looking at it too.
Yeah, but it really is. I mean, Yvette, you said it, we're role models. And that to me is like the biggest honor to, with all of this. It's just, we are embracing our story where, generally we are taught to, baja la cabeza and work, or don't say anything. That's like the general cultural, the general cultural behavior, right? Because your parents didn't speak English, and that's what you were taught. But now it's like, we are sharing our stories. We're not alone. We're talking about them and say, you know what, if somebody tells you no, that you can't go to the university, that you can't pass the exams because either they don't believe in you, or Monica and I, we were talking about las velas, right? When we were taking the exams, how many candles were burning for all of us when we were taking the exams? And voy a rezar al santo, I'm gonna pray. And now every time we walked over to the testing center and stuff. So it was, there's lots of great things that came out of this, and role modeling is the best thing. The mentorship is the best part of it, and across the board.
Definitely. I think I love what's going on in the chat as well. A lot of people just, talking a little bit about their experiences and their thoughts and all the comments. So that's great to see. So I think you've all touched upon sort of our positions as role models and kind of looking towards the future. But what do you guys all think it takes to move us forward in the future, to make our voices a little bit more part of the conversations that are going on in the bigger picture of our industry, to make sure that we are represented at all the tables all the time?
Actually, Carmen, I want to share my perspective because I did not actually study here. So my point of view is a little bit different because I went to university, which were a lot of women. There were more girls than boys in that one. And obviously in Honduras, everybody was brown like me. So I really, maybe that gives me a different perspective from that point of view. I believe that Latina experience brings the spice and flavor in architecture. I truly believe on that. My parents had a vision. They put me in a bilingual school, which was a blessing because I was able to just move here and hit the ground. But because I study outside, coming here and getting a job was really challenging. I did apply everywhere, and for a year, crickets. So I started to work as a cashier in a store until I got something, and then I got enrolled into the interiors because I was not going to do architecture again. Who would do that? It's traumatic in every single country. So but being bilingual really helped me because over the many years that I had, there being many instances that I had to kind of work with people that spoke Spanish. So it was really easy for me to just turn up the switch from English and Spanish. And now that I'm in a global firm, we do have offices in Colombia, Costa Rica, and even in Tokyo office, the design technology leader, he's a Colombian and he speaks Spanish. So we are able to just communicate like fluently. And I am very Spanglish. I start in English, end up in Spanish, and then come in back. And sometimes I forget that, some of my peers grew up here and they're a little stronger in English, but I just kind of mix it up all the way. And that gives me an advantage. I can collaborate with multiple outsourcing or with multi-language driven. And I really think that we as Latinos are very driven and we want to get it done. And it takes endurance to do this because in our countries, survival is in our DNA. And coming from, Honduras, which is in the middle of America, we want to come and take it as a challenge and break every ceiling that is possible in all possible ways So I really think that now that we're really in tough times and people are looking to hire people, it's very important to look where nobody's looking and give those opportunities to all of those that are not the obvious selections. And we are gold in this, I think, times. We as Latinas, women, and some of us mothers, sometimes it's challenging to get that job or that opportunity. However, we know how to take advantage of it.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Tessa. We did not forget you. Do not worry. So yeah, so I think tying back into sort of being gold and being special, a lot has happened in the world in the past 2 years. There's been a lot of focus on sort of where our industry is and where our industry wants to be. And we, as less than 1%, are part of those conversations about inclusion and diversity and making sure that we're there at the table. So what are you guys' thoughts on ways in which we can continue to have those conversations and continue to look to the future of where our industry is going as Latinas? Like, what do we bring in and what voices do we have to expand that conversation?
I can start, or are you going to choose people?
I'll let you choose. Thank you.
Yeah, kind of going along the lines of what Tesla's saying, and just like from reading the book, is like so much of it is, and of course everyone should be proud of like persevering and like being like the one that like breaks through the mold and everything. But as I like read story after story and like saw like what kind of like attitude it takes to like make it to be 1%, right? Like I just kept thinking like, that seems like the onus is on like the individual to kind of figure out how to like make it through, where maybe we should be like actually taking more of a critical look at like what the actual system is to like become an architect, right? So it's like, if it is this difficult, and I think we talked about this earlier, which is like, there's a huge barrier to entry for architecture. Not only is architecture school so difficult, but it's really expensive. And then not only is school expensive, but then you have to buy materials and you have to buy, I don't know, books and all these rendering programs, like it just like adds on and on and on. And then you also have to pay for like all of the testing, the 7 tests that we have to take compared to like the 1 test that a lawyer takes or something, So like, I think like taking a step back and actually like criticizing the system rather than cheering on people to break the mold is like something that really should be taken into consideration so that more people are able to break through, and it's not just like on the individual person to figure it out.
Beautiful.
I think, and I don't know the answer, maybe someone does, but like, I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about, is there's this like limiting belief about this exam, right? And like, oh, this is going to validate me. This exam that's been put together, that is nothing more than just a state being able to say, okay, you can call yourself a licensed architect. It's this huge mountain, right? And it's, for me, it took me 18 years to finally say, okay, I want to go ahead and test and be judged in that way. And it took me telling people, do not rush me. I'll do it when I'm ready. It's not changing the work I'm doing. I'm still working with an architect, I'm still fine. And so in that sense, for me, it's about supporting and kind of finding similar people, similar girls that are young that might be in that same, that just need us to hold space for them. It's not even about pushing them, because sometimes pushing someone might actually not be what they need. And it's really just finding and asking, what do they need? What, and how can I share my experience to help you in your journey? Which is I mean, that's essentially what your book is, Alicia, which is great.
I agree, Monica. I always say it's like yoga, where you are is where you're supposed to be.
Right.
So just no pressure, right? Because you only know. It's at the end, it's you that's taking the exams. It's you that's studying. Nobody's going to pass it for you but you.
Right.
So I always, it didn't dawn on me until I got that last pass. Who have all of you seen, I can assume everybody here has seen The Wizard of Oz, the movie. And it didn't dawn on me until I got the last pass that I honestly felt like the scarecrow when the wizard gave him the diploma. And all of a sudden he was, he was a PhD and he and he was smart. When all along he had the not, I mean, he was
Yeah.
the smartest one, the wittiest one, right? And I felt like after I got that last pass, I'm like, oh, now
Right. Right.
But it is that validation, right? And that validation, that little piece of paper that
Yeah. It wasn't until I realized, I told myself, and I had to realize, I am already an architect. I am already working as this. I am enough. I am like, there's just, whether I pass or fail the exam does not change me, right? It does not change who I am. And that was like huge. And yeah.
I think when I hear like only 1 or less than 1% of licensed architects are Latinas, I'm always like, well, if we counted the ones that technically don't have a license, were working on their way there, or just like working in architecture and designers, or like, I think that number would grow. Obviously, I don't think it would grow as much as we would hope, but I think like it would be a larger number if we do expand our definition of what an architect is.
Right.
I feel like now I've met a lot of women who are not just women, but Latinos in general. There's that imposter syndrome. It's very, very real, and it's very intimidating to even begin the exams. So how do you does anyone have advice like on how do you get past it? Because it's a very real thing. Monty's like,
I'm like trying to think of what got me started. And I mean, yeah, I think it was really just seeing other people get started, like just be like having examples and having like people to rely on to ask questions and stuff. Like that was really like not feeling like I'm the only one that's trying to climb this mountain. That's really what helped me, but I'm sure there are other ways to motivate people.
Well,
I think that's, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think it's the having that inspiration from people around you, especially people that you identify yourself with, but it's also having the resources. I'm lucky to work at a company where, there are so many resources and people that give their time to be able to teach and mentor others in the process. But again, that's just one example. I think this is something that each of us has the power to do and be able to reflect what we've learned and reach out if we see that somebody shows interest but is struggling in any way. And if we cannot offer that, just, we can maybe guide them through to people that can. But I think in terms of circling back to how do we continue to move forward in terms of representation, it's also about creating some solid programs where we actually are introducing young people to the industry that otherwise they won't have access to, and creating those paths into the design industry. So again, I work at Genster. There's a lot that happens, but I try as an individual to be able to voice what I feel about the subject and be an active participant of these programs, and be able to, there's one that's called DEEP that we do, which is Design Education and Employment Program, which has one part is the DREAM, which is where it's about design, rebuild, and educate, advocate, and mentor. So there's a summer school program, but also that provides them high school credits to the students. So that's really an incentive there. And then we try to make sure that we provide an environment for them to be able to learn. So that is followed up usually by a 2-year apprenticeship program. That it's a guided paid apprenticeship. So I'm trying to, as an individual, be able to do what I can But I think that the more we do together, the more we can achieve. So having these conversations like today and be able to share our experiences and what each of us does as an individual and bring it together to the table, I think it's a huge start. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention in terms of how do we bring representation to the table. So there's the part of that we just talked about of within the profession, but I think there's also the subject of inclusive design within itself. And I think that that's something that we need to be able to bring in the communities, be able to understand how the process itself needs to be inclusive for design to be inclusive. So that's just, I think it's part of the conversation of, it's not just about bringing the representation into the profession, but bringing it into the work we do in the built environment.
Absolutely. To add to that, it is very important, the communication and maintaining informed of what is occurring in our community. And as we are informed, we can implement as women in architecture or as architects, the environment of the society, of the city to continue in a healthy growth.
Yeah, and the representation is important at the university level. I don't know many of people that look like us too, who are professors or who are deans. And so that's helpful too. And people in places of leadership, whether it's also in product reps, sales reps, right? All of that. And so I'm starting to see a more diverse community in those areas too. And what we talk about it with Arquitina is when you become licensed, okay, you're licensed, now what, right? So now you're a value. You're an added value to your firm. How are you going to leverage that? And so there's just all these variables that we talk about.
Tesla, do you have anything else you wanted to add or any other thoughts?
No, I think it's super interesting. I had to Google the imposter syndrome and understand what that actually means. And it's really interesting because sometimes as in a tough world, in a man world, in a white world, it's a lot harder to get in. So sometimes we overcompensate in other areas to kind of get in, right? And it's part of the persistence of being Latino, right? It's really in our DNA. We want to get there. So, but not feeling good and not understanding of what you achieve, that is something that we should always learn, that it's okay to fail. And it's okay to, and if you fail, it's okay to learn from that fail. It's even more important than just to get it right the first time, because sometimes if you get it right for the first time, you may not have learned how did you get it right in the first place. So actually a little bit of hardship in the road actually helps us kind of develop ourselves in this profession. It is a hard profession. If you're in the site, you have to be the big boys and you have to command in front of other men that are doing, physical job, and contractors can be intimidating. So when you're in that side, you have to have that strong personality. When you're in the office, you have to have a soft skills. So it's kind of a balance depending on where you are. The surroundings can be super, super different. But I think it's really, really important as we move forward that we as minority, as women, as mothers, are an inspiration for our future generations. I do have 4 girls. So what are my girls going to do, right? Would they want to be architects? Would I support that? Of course I would. But, that's why I volunteered to spark programs and kind of those target the 7th, 8th graders, where you see a very large number in schools of people like us, Latinas and women, and they're very interested. And then once they pass their high school, the numbers start dropping, and the number of Latinas that go into universities gets slower. And then the ones that graduate, and then the ones that make it at the workforce. And then there's also cultural in here, right? We all know that we are in our cultures, you're supposed to stay home and take care of the kids. So once you get married, you do that transition, you'd have to pick some roles in there. Should I stop working? Should I just do this? And, sometimes it's hard decisions you have to do. However, helping these people that are coming from universities to encourage them that it is possible. It is not easy. The journey is really, really hard, especially if you have all these components in your life, but it is super important to just be consistent and see what is going to make you happy. Because like I said, I fall in love with the career, and actually I can work for shoes. As long as I get shoes, I'm fine. But it's that's how much I like it, right? Because I do see that I may have not spent as much time as my mom spent with me when I was little. But I try to give as much as I can on the weekends and compensate that way, and show my girls that there is possibilities of a balance, but it is not easy. It's really, really hard.
I know. I mean,
Interesting. It's just interesting that it all goes back to the numbers for me, is that, there almost 50% of architecture students are women, and women earn their AXP hours 2.5 times faster. So what happens? What happens with that? That's what interests me.
Well, I think, and I really don't want to come off as sounding like really, really criticize the system and the architecture, like architecture, I promise. But I feel like oftentimes people say, like, I've heard plenty of my friends say, like, I wouldn't let like my kids be architects. I'm not getting paid enough, even though I love it so much, So a lot of it is just like looking at the profession as a whole and how to make it so that it's like, it's something that we can tell people, like, yeah, you should really come join us, and you should really come join us. And a lot of people I think that I know that dropped out of architecture, that went to a lot of the women that I know that left architecture and went to do something else, it was because they were working so hard and not getting paid enough. And now they're doing similar work, but it's not paid as little. And and like, I think not only do architects get paid so little, but women architects get paid less than that, right? So I think that's what happens. I think people leave because they get busy and they have family to take care of, or they have a life to take care of, that is just, the incentive isn't there sometimes. And how do we make it so that it is there?
We need to remove that stigma, and we need to really work hard to provide the same opportunities at an equitable level. It's the source. Otherwise, it's the Band-Aid.
Yeah, I think it speaks to, I mean, same question I had, Alicia, and I was talking to a friend. I'm like, I'm going to be on this panel. We're going to talk about Latina architects because less than 1% are licensed. She's like, what happens to them? She's like, where are they? I'm like, I know there's more in school. And then I'm like, but what does happen to them? And it's like, and I think it's like all these things, right? And I mean, and that's not to say only Latinas that have this struggle, but we kind of have all these things like on top of us, and not just be negative. And but like, I think the thing is, the truth is, I never really thought I was going to earn a 6-figure salary. I literally did not think that. And I'm like, oh, I am? And I'm like, oh, well, let's keep going. And the thing is, like, it's sharing that experience. It's going to community colleges and doing mock interviews and doing like these programs with these kids to kind of empower them and to get them to expand their minds that have limiting beliefs. Like, the thing for me, like, now what's in my sights is to be partner eventually one day at my firm. Before, people would ask me, I'd be like, I'm not interested. Nope, I don't want that problem. I don't want that headache. I don't want that worry. I don't want to have to wake up in the middle of the night. But then it shifted for me maybe about three years ago, that I'm like, wait a minute, if I'm doing this, and then some little girl is going to see that, oh my God, there's this one Latina amongst all these partners, and she's a badass, and she's a, you know, she's a boss, and I want to be that example. So almost as much as it is for me to be able to earn more money and to have the, you know, nice shoes and great shoes like Tesla, it's like, it's also, it's as important the example I'm going to be for these little girls. So
We heard it here first and it's recorded. Monica,
Gosh
partner,
darn it.
KFA.
I have equity in my house. I can do it.
You know, it comes to mind is how do you know what you don't know? So that's what part of this mentorship is, and sharing resources. And that's part of the journey and the stories of this book, right? It's just, how do you know what you don't know? I didn't even know I was supposed to ask that question.
Right.
I didn't know I was supposed to go here or take this test, or, you know, accredited school, what does that mean? Or GPA, what does that mean when you're like in high school, right? So how, if nobody is telling you, how do you know? That's the other thing.
Exactly. For example, myself as a business owner, as you know, having my own business, that's what my goal is, to give other opportunities to others that, you know, are also seeking architecture or wanting to grow in their practice, or, you know, in their student life at the moment, and being able to give those opportunities to interns.
I think it also has to do that we all have different kinds of biases inside of us. And I don't know numbers exactly, I don't have it handy, but we had a lot of RDI conversations in which they share similar numbers of what Alicia was saying, in which, okay, the number is really large at the university level, and then the workflow starts dripping down, etc. Right? But another really interesting is like leaders, like Monica wants to do, right? When leaders are men, their teams used to, they seem to show a larger number of men. And when you have leaders that are women, you start seeing more balance in here. You start seeing a little more diversity. You see a 50-50 in their teams. And it's increasing because the number of leaders in the women community is growing. And as we grow up, we can see a lot of our very well-known like lawyers and such. You see very big figures in Latina community, and I think it's a small community that, you know, we all had immigrant parents and came here, and they probably didn't go to school. I know that I was the first one to complete university in my family. But when I see here, I'm sure that a lot of people that came here, they probably didn't have university degrees, but they encourage their children to do it. And this is the people that we're seeing in this panel, right? That for second or third generation, when they move to this country, looking for possibilities. And it's just really amazing, because now our children that are maybe a mix, maybe they're 100% Latinos, or whatever that you know the combo is, they are going to increase these numbers, and being just an inspiration to them, it's really our job, because if we can inspire them to just pursue what they want, whatever career it is, they will do it. I have a nephew, he came in and he said, I want to be an architect. And we all know that architectural school is not easy. You sleep long hours, you're around the clock. Everything my mom said I shouldn't be a doctor for, all those symptoms are in architecture, and the pay difference is quite big between a doctor and an architect. However, I said him, you should, but go to all these buildings, take pictures, write a little bit about them. And he came to LA, and I sent him a journey. He never taken the train, but help that curiosity, right? Even though it's not an easy career to be, there's a lot of beauty in architecture, and it's very rewarding. You know, every building you been work, those are your babies, and you drive through and you see them and they become real. They are real. You can touch them, you can feel them, you can experience them.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, so, so Tesla, you mentioned the word biases. So I was thinking, you know, how do we share a little bit about, you know, what makes maybe the Latina experience unique to, say, other races or other ethnicities? And it's that we're made up of everything and anything. We're made up of over 20 countries, all of us with unique perspectives on things. And even though we get bunched into that title of Latinas, it can mean so many different things for so many different people. So I figured we'd take a couple of minutes and play a little game. It's a quick fire game. You're just gonna say the things that come into your mind. Everyone who's listening can join on in the chat room as well. This is just a test of what it means to be Latina, how the same and how different we are. But so here we go. It's all food and culture related, so it should be simple.
I love it. I love it.
So here we go. So frijoles or habichuelas?
Frijoles.
Habichuela.
Frijoles.
And the games begin. Okay, so we'll stick to our beans. Red or black?
Black.
Red.
Definitely red.
Yes, there you go. See, I see the chat room. People have their opinions.
Are you considering pinto beans to be red?
I think they can be whatever they feel like being.
Good.
They're pink,
brown.
technically.
They're brown.
In my house, my husband makes the black eyed peas, the white beans, the big beans, the tiny beans. I
All
go
of
for
them.
red, all of them, because he makes all kinds of chilies, but he's
Mhm.
American, so he uses different beans that we use. So frijoles to me.
See,
All
this
beans.
is controversial indeed. Okay, so here's the next one. This is one of my favorite ones, and I think Corinne will remember this from conference last year. Guayaba or guayaba con queso? It's very important.
Con queso.
Con queso.
Guayaba
And
by itself.
We have some haters in the chat room. No guayaba.
Neither. Guayaba off the tree for sure.
if it's guayaba based, definitely con queso. Like you gotta cut me that cheese and put the scoop of guayaba. But if it's the guayaba, then just the fruit, then guayaba sola.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. Okay, so this is the last one, and this one I hope is near and dear to everyone's heart. So tell me what your favorite breakfast food is.
Mango.
There you go.
What is my favorite? Pan dulce, conchas blancas.
There you go. Oh, look at that.
Oh, I'm hungry.
Look at that chat room. Chilaquiles, we've got some frijoles, arepas. Woo.
Rosquillas.
Yeah.
Café and pan dulce for sure.
Yes. So, oh wait, now that you say café, is it
Café de
just,
olla.
is it just café or café con leche? How do we roll?
Con leche.
Café.
Café con leche.
Café con leche.
See, so I just thought it'd be fun to just, share how we are all very similar, but still unique, and we all come with our perspective, but still kind of makes part of the big family that we are. And now I think everyone's hungry.
I know.
So cool. So thanks everyone for just indulging me in a little bit of playfulness as we talk a little bit more about the experiences of Latinas in architecture, because, well, even though we're architects, we still all eat, right? So it is something that is common in a way to all of us. So moving on, a little bit more serious matters now. What are you guys' thoughts about sort of what advice do you give to people who seek you out, who are thinking of the profession or are just starting in the profession? And I've seen some comments from students who are with us tonight, so this goes out to them especially. and how we help them kind of make their way through the process.
For me, it's embrace who you are. We all bring value. We all bring something to the table, and just know what that is. We talk about leadership, and earlier I mentioned, how do you know what you don't know? But I just remember how I grew up, right, with Mexican parents who didn't really speak English, who came here to work and put their kids through school, and so growing up, I recognized later in life that I was being trained to be an entrepreneur at the tender age of 8 years old. Maybe that's as early as I can remember. But how many of us grew up, translating insurance letters, calling the doctor, making appointments, and all kinds of things that we as children do for our parents, that our parents ask us to do. And so those are leadership skills, right? We may not recognize that when it's happening, but that has come in handy as an entrepreneur now. I need to make this happen. I need to, have this conversation. I need to ask questions. So my advice is be comfortable with who you are and embrace your leadership skills, because everybody has something.
I think I always tell people, and not just in architecture, but seek out people that have done it. Seek out people that surround yourself around people. Like if you see somebody that you appreciate what they've done with their life, what they're doing, if they're architects, like, reach out to them and say, I would love to be able to just have you talk to you over café con leche, and talk about, and just seek out your mentors. Like, and it's on every level. Your mentor to go to college, your mentor for financial aid, your mentor, like, just kind of like ask people that you see that are doing it. There's no invention to build the car on your own,
100%. I agree with you, Monica. I think that finding a mentor that shares your interests and that you trust is key. And if you don't have somebody that necessarily is an architect or is within the profession, you can ask anybody that you trust, that you admire, for help in how to get there. Just reach out to the first person that you think it might help you get anywhere. And sometimes it takes long steps and just little by little. I myself, I saw something in the chat about somebody who appreciated sharing the experience of being parents. I'm also a mom. I'm 45 years old. I have 3 little kids. For me, motherhood happened a little later in my life. And, that has come together now with the challenges of being in the profession in a challenging world, because I'm in a little bit more senior than when I started. So it's all together. But I want to let everyone know and try to just give a little bit of my story here, that it just happens if you keep a positive at what you want to do in life, keep a positive perspective, but mostly just be yourself. Don't hold back. You are your own brand, and what you bring to the table is important, and you're the first one that needs to believe that, and that will reflect on its own. So if you need that extra push, just find the person that you think it will help, that really test your best interest, and that they can help you navigate and keep climbing that ladder.
I would say, like, really expand your idea of what an architect is. Like, we have 6 people on the panel here, and we're all doing completely different work, right? And I think, like, when you go to school, for our school, like, you're kind of like trained to think like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a designer, but like, you have project managers, you have designers, you have people that are working in BIM. You have people that are doing, like environmental work. And like, even I was like I said, I switched over to affordable housing real estate development a few months ago. And I was like, oh, it's so weird that I just, I got my license and now I'm going to switch over to development. And thankfully I'm surrounded by a lot of cool people that were like, no, you're still an architect. Like you're still, you're still building buildings. You can always go back to architecture. And I think, yeah, like a lot of people just have like this very limited view of what architects do. And I think if more people knew that you can go in like a completely different route, depending on what your interests are, they would actually decide to go into architecture more, because I think a lot of people are like, I'm not a designer. I'm not, like, I don't like to draw, which is like something that like little kids think architects do only, right? So I think, yeah, just like really to expand your definition of what an architect is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I actually want to chime in on that because I studied architecture. I've been through all the phases of being an architect, from designer to, well, from drafter to an engineering firm at first, actually, to designer, to project architect, to project manager, everything that can be done from interiors to new construction. And today I am doing design strategy, which is basically going back to basics. And I just want to, like you said, Monty, let people know you don't have, it's not just one thing. This profession, there's so much to it. I work with people that do product design. I work with our brand group who, it's just amazing to develop environmental graphics with them. I work with our master plan groups in urban development and projects. So there's so many opportunities that we have within architecture. So it just, like you said, Monty, couldn't have said it better. Open your eyes and keep an open mind about it.
My advice would be, don't worry about the what if, but worry about the even if, because that will help you grow with the strength of your knowledge. That will help you grow in your practice through your years. So take the risk and the control.
I couldn't agree more with you, Alicia. It's really like all of us, we went to architecture. We thought we were going to be the next J.E.D.I, the next, famous architect and designer, right? And then once you start in the field, you find out that there's a smaller of a number of us, women and men, that can go into the design because there's more work in other areas. And all these areas are equally beautiful, like just the fact of developing the documents, executing them, and also helping people how to use technology to do it in a more streamlined way. There's many opportunities in there. There's strategy, there's project management that a lot of us don't even know about, like cranking numbers is something that nobody shows us how to do, how to run a business. That the profession of architecture is really, really complex, and there's an opportunity to find what you love to do. And I always tell them, look inside yourself, what you love to do, and that will make you excel. And feel free to try and fail and learn from the journey, because don't pound yourself if you don't get it on the first time. Keep trying, you'll get it, and you'll be a champ on it. That's usually what I tell them, because if you love something, you're gonna make lemons with that lemonade.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So the one thing I would add to all of this conversation is finding your tribe. I think, really that your tribe will be what'll get you through. Mentors can only kind of help you through, but those people who you surround yourself with that are having those experiences. I consider a few people on this panel personal friends that I've known since I got to LA almost. And having them is really what makes this career and this profession kind of worthwhile, and new people who come in that you can then start sharing your tribe with. That's really important. And I think it's part of a lot of what's been said tonight by everyone in the panel is sharing those stories, right? Continuing to share and continuing to expand on the stories that we have to share.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so now we'd like to open it up to anyone in the audience. If there are any questions, if you'd like to either raise your hand or put them in the chat, and I will go ahead and start reading those off. Or I can just ask more food questions. Don't tempt me. Oh, well, everyone gets warmed up. I always know the first question is the hardest one to get out. Oh, here's our first one. Yay. Okay, so the first question is there anything you regret not doing?
I think I can take that one.
Mhm.
I think I regret not valuing myself more early in my career. I think that Monica was saying before, we're sometimes so scared to ask for what we think we're worth, or maybe we don't think we're worth something. And if we are, we're just scared. So I was in that stage. And maybe it's not a regret, maybe it's just a learning, but looking back from my career, and one of the things that I've learned is to value myself, because if I don't value myself, then others are not necessarily going to see it. So I think that's one regret. So moving forward, I try to ask for what I want and not hold back.
Beautiful.
I regret not passing my exams before having kids. That one I regret. Now I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to study because that's the only silent time in my house. But, I'm going to do it. It'll take me 20 years, but it doesn't matter.
You are.
I'll put it in that wall.
Yes,
I think
you are.
that's maybe one thing about Latinas is we do it all and we're resilient, and no matter what is on our plate, we do it. And we never say, I can't. I mean, I'm sure, of course, we say I can't, and not to say we can't, we shouldn't say it, but we kind of we don't give up, right? And I think that's that's probably a lot of reasons why our parents even came to this country, was because they wanted opportunities for their kids. And I think that one thing that there's this drive that our parents had and our grandparents that then becomes it's this work ethic that's kind of passed down to us, and it's just in life that we just kind of keep at it and keep going. So the moms on this panel and the moms that are on the thing, that's even more boss, to tell you the truth.
I agree with Tesla that I should have taken it or passed it, but it happened the way it happened, and I'm fine with it. I made peace with it. And especially having my last pass exam, I wouldn't have it any other way. You always remember that moment, that last pass. So my son he was almost 2 years old, or he was about 2 years old, and he was learning his letters and his numbers. And I got the results from my last exam, and I just had to click enter, and I was like, oh my God. And I grabbed him and I put him on my lap for a security in case it was another fail. And there it was, the result. And I said, do you know those letters? Can you read those letters for me, please? And he's like, P A. And I just started crying, and I'm like, okay, that is right. That is right. He knows his letters, and that's what it says. So I accept my journey.
This is a little more lighthearted, but I feel like I regret just taking school, architecture school, for granted. I think looking back, I'm like, man, I really was having a great time just being video and getting to design whatever the hell I wanted, and just kind of enjoying the experience. Because I think when you're in it, it feels so, so hard and serious and stuff. Not that I didn't have fun, but I mean, I would give that advice to any college student, but especially architecture students, just really enjoy it, because when you get into working, it's a completely different vibe. and not that it's not a good one, but it's just very different.
Yeah, the student life, embrace it.
Yeah.
Indeed. Arthur, you had a question. Did you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. First of all, congratulations to everybody here. I'm a Latino, a structural Latino engineer here in California. I found out a few hours ago about this event, and I was like, I gotta be there. I gotta meet some Latino architects here. First of all, congratulations. I've been working with architects both in Mexico and recently here since like a year ago here in California too. And there's something very important I want to ask you. What message would you like to send to Latinas back at their home about how can they arrive here? How can they, how can they all, I've met a lot of Mexicans or other Latinas that dream about working here in California or in the States. What message, what advice would you give them to arrive here?
Who's
I
Amanda?
would-
Answer.
Oh.
Go ahead.
This is a non-answer, but I would challenge them to, like, I think you could be an architect in your own home. I don't think it necessarily has to be California. And like, I don't think that being a US architect is the end all be all. And, I think being an architect anywhere else is just as special and just as important. And so that would be my rebuttal to their question.
Yeah, but if you do want to come here, there's a great group. One of our mentors for Argentina, she started this organization called Women Immigrant Architects, and it's another big network of women from all over the world who come to work here, who are transferring credits, who are looking for, they're transferring their license or whatever, but that's a support network. And then there's Argentina, of course, that's a network. One of the authors of the book, she's practicing in Mexico City. So her name is Karen Garcia, and she's in Mexico. So and doing pretty great.
That's awesome. I study over there, right? I actually, when I came, it was kind of an accident. I say I came with Elian from Cuba because I came that same week. I came for vacation, actually. My mom was living in California, and she was a diplomat. So she said, I'm so lonely, come and visit me. And when I came visiting, I'm like, you can work over here. And I was like, well, it's starting all over, really. I'll come and visit. And in a month, I'm gone. And then she convinced me, right, again, to stay here and look for a job. And it's really hard to just land here and not have a plan. So my advice for people that are planning on coming, you do have to have a plan. You do have to learn code. This is something like completely different in our countries. There's no code. There's nothing to you properly do construction over there. You just do, and it gets done. You do a sketch in a napkin and an albañil just builds it magically. There's no RFIs. What is that? It's it's really empirical how things are done in our countries. And here is very structured. So do your research. I know that there's very successful businesses in our country that do outsourcing. That's a good way to get in and start learning how to get into the network. It's another thing that you need to know people, because if you just land here, recommendations go so far. You can be the best architect in the world, but if you don't have that networking skill, it's going to be a lot harder. It took me a year to get a letter, and actually my job in a cashier was paying me $3 more than the architectural job because I didn't have experience, but I had a title. I was trained architect. I was being a drafter, and I was making $7 an hour. And as a cashier, I was making 10. This is the dispersity that is out there because you didn't study here. That doesn't mean the education was not up to pair to what was in here. So yes, but you got to learn, and sometimes learn takes a toll, and takes a toll in your salary. or in the opportunities that might arise. So make a plan. If you want to get from point A to point B, break it into tiny little goals, and you're going to make it happen because you're Latina or Latino.
I was going to add also that it'd be great to have at least one connection within the industry. And I know that's like the first connection is the hardest one. So trying to, LinkedIn is a great source to understand who are second or third connections to people that you might know. Go as far as going into the company's names and see who works there and see if maybe there's, even if your mom's lawyer knows that cousin of that person, it doesn't matter, just as long as you have one person that can get you in at the door. You don't have to be a personal friend, just find it. And that's, like Tesla said, you need that for the first couple of years. It might be hard without that. Talking again, present experience from somebody that came when I was already in my late 20s. So with a lot of experience outside of the US, but not here. So having that connection was the only thing that really helped push me through and not have to work for little money.
Okay, so we have one question in the chat room. Can you all share a moment of joy that you experienced in your career lately or recently?
Is Latinas in architecture? This opportunity.
I think as architects, because by default you're always Latina in
Yeah. Gosh.
Well, for me, it's always about, well, not always, but most of the time it's about seeing happy clients. And just recently, our team had really good feedback from one of our clients that our San Diego office couldn't take the job, and they were really busy, so they decided to go with the LA office, and they didn't know us. And they were not going to pursue the project against her, but because of the LA team doing such a great job, they decided to do so. So it was just really good feedback, and that just happened a couple of days ago, and we won a huge project because of that. So just making the clients happy, it always brings joy to me.
For me, I've been for a year and a half. I've been kind of landed into the embodied carbon. We have a climate challenge in front of us, right? And our planet is getting hotter and we have a problem, and our industry is part of the problem, which it means is part of the solution as well. So we can do a little bit out of it. And just looking at how many, after a year and a half of trying to convince other architects that we need to take peace on it, now in the last few months, everybody's eyes have come into this. And at the beginning of the year, I did had a goal, right? And my goal was, I want to do a TED Talk. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to break it into smaller things. It's not going to be a TED Talk. It is going to be a presentation in AU, in Autodesk University, in which I am streamlining the process to make it easier for you guys, right? To make it part of your workflow. So it's like, it's going to impact the ROI, right? We're going to do it. We're going to do great buildings. They're going to be sustainable. We'll be able to calculate the carbon footprint. And it's not an easy job to do. It's actually an act of love, but just like people getting interest and volunteering their projects for a pilot project was kind of really great turnaround. And in September, I'll have the numbers of all the projects that we were able to tabulate in carbon footprint. And then the next step will be to optimize it and lower it. So it's little by littles, but I do just making that submittal last week and committing to it and putting that deadline in my thing. I'm celebrating it as a win, and I'll celebrate it all the way until the day I present. So that's mine.
That's great.
Ooh, I'm excited for that one.
That one affects everybody.
Yeah.
The whole country.
I'll put the link because it is a proposal. I will have to get selected. So if you want to go. You just need to create an Autodesk account. You hit the thumbs up, and if I get selected, most likely this year will be in person. However, I'm pretty sure it'll be a hybrid version of that. So, you'll probably be able to have access to it.
That's great.
Right, Tesla, that's amazing.
Yeah, please share it. That's really important work right there.
I think my moments of joy come when a project ends, right? When you get the C of O and you're like, it's done. And since 2015, I was senior project manager for Ivy Station in Culver City. So now it's the 3 buildings, it's the Shea Hotel, it's residential, and it's 3 levels of parking. It was this huge thing that took so many years, and it finally opened. And so when I see it's on Instagram and people are sharing about the Etta, the restaurant with, the famous chef or whatever, and I'm like, that's, like I had a hand in that. And so like there's all these places, and so for me, it's seeing my work, seeing what I put in my efforts and my sweat into now being used by people. And so I would say my most important, this isn't recent, but for me, when I worked in affordable housing in Boyle Heights in East LA, and it was adaptive reuse of an existing hospital. And that's in East LA, that's like my people. And so to know that it's now providing low income housing for its residents, that's really one of my proudest moments.
I love that you said like, oh, I had a hand in that, because I think for me, like what first comes up to mind is I also was working in affordable housing, or I am still working in affordable housing, but on the development side. And I read about like all these funding like applications and all of these like funding awards. And it's really fun to like read the list of like funding awards and see like, oh, that project that I worked on, 3 years ago, that was put on because we couldn't get funding at the time, or because it was put on hold for whatever reason, now just got like a $10 million funding award and is not going to go through. And so it's just like, I think because these projects are such long lead time projects, like sometimes you forget to celebrate like the very like short wins or like the milestones. So it like I sent Gio, who was my boss at my last office, like a congrats, you got like $10 million. It looks like this project is going to go through. So that was really fun, because it like really does take a village to build these projects. And sometimes you're like really like, it feels a little bit demoralizing when things get put on hold or something, but then like you see it finally go through and finally break ground. And that's like really exciting, because you're like, man, that took a lot of work and a lot of money. So yeah.
Sometimes it takes years and years.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for me, it's again, why Argentina started and really kind of unlocked some superpowers that we all have, some Argentina superpowers, and it really has empowered so many women and Latinas to share their story. And again, meeting all of you, and I would have never met all of you had it not been for this book. I would have never met all of you for Zoom, and here we are, right? And because of this, it has added so much exposure to our stories, to our journey, and in our professional lives. I think now people are like turning our way. Now people are inviting us to the table, or asking where did she go, or who is that, right? And so, and I'm seeing that in my own work, right? And working in awesome projects with awesome people, and truly innovative projects, and something that I wanted to do when I was 6 years old. I mean, the road was super bumpy and, dark and gray and unpredictable at times, but all of this, that thank you for publishing that 1% number, NCAR, because this is why we're here, and hopefully, I don't know how long it'll take us to bump it up to to 1, bump it up to 2, and then just keep going. And that's what my joy is right now, is being able to just see so many more of us, and being able to practice architecture and do something that we really enjoy and love, and create spaces for people and experiences. So I just think that's just you know, I can't even express it in words. It's how exciting it is.
Yes, exactly. And like Monica said, just when we see our projects come to, to life, we see them on paper, we're designing them, and then we see them, we see these retoños, in Spanish, we are babies alive. So just seeing and hearing from our clients, the satisfaction of the project. For example, during COVID, when the lockdown, I said to myself, that's it. My business is going out of business, and it was the opposite. Construction never stopped. So that's when I had to consider an intern, because it was just the amount of work that there was, the amount of load of work. And just another joyous moment would be now that I'll be teaching. So it's seeing the the retoños practice.
I want to add that I think in my experience, the rewards in our profession are long-term. We don't reap the rewards immediately, but there's a certain point in your life where you start reaping rewards more often, because all of that work that you've put in is starting to pay back, and you see it more and more.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to remind the young people here that it might seem a little slow at the beginning, but just keep putting those seeds, just keep doing your best, because those rewards will catch up. Just one example, I went on it was supposed to be a 1-year leave right before COVID, because my kids were little and I wanted to take a little bit more time with them. So I was going to take off for a year, then COVID hit, and ended up being 3 years. So just before those 3 years, I was working on the programming and strategy, workplace strategy for the NFL headquarters. And just now in January, they opened up that headquarters in front of the Sophie Stadium for the Super Bowl time. And I saw it, I'm like, oh my goodness, look at that. This finally happened. And I didn't even know it was happening now. I can't believe it so many years later. So, again, sometimes things just fall off your radar, and then all of a sudden it's like, this happened. I was part of that, like Monica was saying, and Monty. It's just be patient. It's really rewarding. It's just at a different pace.
So I'll add one tiny little moment of joy for me. So this panel is a moment of joy for me. When I got the book back in December, I contacted Alicia immediately and I said, I don't know how, but we're getting you to LA. I want you to come to LA. I want to, share everything you're doing with everyone in LA. And we started talking then, and I started reaching out, AIA, Socanoma, AWA+D, and I said, I want to do this thing, who's in for the ride. And immediately everyone came up with names of you all and how to get you all in a panel. And so I think it's starting to show like what we can do when we actually try to come together and empower ourselves. So I think this is a little tiny moment of joy that I hope is, we're able to share, and just seeing the amount of people and the new names of new Latinas and Latinos that are here with us who want to hear more and be part of this is really exciting.
Yeah, ditto.
And maybe one day we'll do a bean party. Everyone can bring their favorite bean.
A bean throwdown. Yeah. A bean throwdown. Love it. We can do a guacamole throwdown. Carmen, you make good guacamole.
Girl.
I think we should make like a guacamole competition.
Sure.
See?
Like we can taste it and see which one is better, right? I'm sure that there's different flavors in all these Latinas in this panel.
See, now we're getting competitive with each other, right? That's
You
part
know,
of
when
who we
I
are.
go to my country and they ask me, what do you want to eat? Every time I visit anybody, I say, I want frijoles. Because they taste different everywhere. They're equally amazing. So from my mom's beans, from my grandma's beans, from my tia's beans, from my neighbor's beans, even if you go to the mercado, they all taste amazing and they all taste so different. So I
And-
like tasting.
And that in a nutshell is what it's like to be Latina. We are all taste marvelous, but we're all different too. Cynthia has a question. Cynthia, if you want to unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, and I'm going to turn my camera on. I just want to thank everyone on this panel today. It was really nice to hear, and it resonated. A lot of what you said resonated with me. So thank you for that. But my question was for Monica. Monica, where can we see you perform comedy?
Yes. I will be next month. I'm going to be in the Federal Bar in North Hollywood. I don't know the date yet. And then actually in July, I'm going to be on another performance that I know of, but about every month I get about one show a month. So if you, sorry to plug, sorry, but if you follow me on Instagram at the Monica Rocks with 2 X's at the end, I post on there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to make it an AIA Women in Architecture event.
So I know I'm going to post it. Yeah, for sure.
I gotta head out there for that. We gotta stream it live.
There's one more question in the chat, which is, has there been a project you designed or completed that gave you the opportunity to highlight a Latino presence?
I'm working on something exciting right now that is my first international project. And I'd like to give a shout out actually to the publisher, something that people wouldn't know, the publisher of Latinas in Architecture. They're called Fig Factor Media, who is also Latina owned. And her name is Jackie Camacho Ruiz. And her mission is to elevate Latinas globally. And that is what she does. And so she, knew about Argentina, and immediately she said, you need to share your stories. You need to write about it right now. Like, find the authors and let's do this. So, it takes a village, like somebody said earlier. And that there's the mantra that I use, and it's been that I follow, is lift as you climb, right? Nobody gets to where you are alone. I don't think so. I don't know anybody who does. You have somebody or something, even if it's your cat that you come home to, and you talk to, right? There's someone or something there. But she and a partner of hers, they actually commissioned me and my firm to design a civic youth center in Mexico. And they heard me speak at an event about sustainable architecture and why it's important, and why it's important to me, and why it's important for all of us. And they hired me on the spot. They said, this is what we have going on. And so we have concepts out there for them, and we are in motion to hopefully build by 2025. And this is a building that is built of rammed earth, and it is built locally from the soil that's there. And because it also will be a youth center, the youth will learn how to build it themselves. They can be a part of the building. So this is just a dream of a project. It overlooks the town, and it's in a beautiful hillside. That's what I'm excited about.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's just, you never know who's listening, right?
Yeah.
That's why embracing your story and saying it over and over again, and sharing other stories, it'll get you to where you want to go.
What town is it in, Alicia?
It's in Calvillo, Aguascalientes.
Mm.
Mhm. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
I was just
can
gonna say it's interesting, you know, how many biophilia and biomimicry strategies we have in our own countries that just naturally happen. That just going back to the what do we bring to the table subject, you know, I think that especially now to Tessa's point in terms of climate impact and how can we actually, you know, have a dent on this situation. There's a lot to learn about our cultures and our own way of building because of necessity or just, you know, whatever it was. That I think it's critical. So I'd love to hear that, Alicia, and all those strategies that are happening. It's amazing.
Me too. I would love to. I would love to. It's something that has been dear in my heart lately. Uh, the you know, every project I celebrate it. Now I celebrate the ones that I help my teams develop because I do get involved, even though I'm just overseeing now. But the last one probably is Carmen's Nightmare. It was Crenshaw, and that was a transit project. It was very, very interesting ride. At the end, I basically replaced Carmen, big shoes. Okay, I went into the site, and oh my God, they were 200 RFIs every day. Yes, and it's just like it took me from this level in construction administration to the next level above. But I think that project was really, really interesting because it was a transit project. It was a joint venture. It's still not open. It was finished, but there was engineering portions of it, and of course we did all the stations in there. At that phase, I was doing the at-grade stations, and they had a lot of challenges. You know, it looks like easy. It is an awning, and yes, we did the details, and nothing fit in there. You couldn't put your hands to put all the cables that needed to be hitting in there. So a little bit like we need to do a little testing when we do details because, you know, a 6-inch hole to put all the electrical that you want to conceal in there, there's nobody has hands to fit in there. And when you're doing electrical, you need to fix, replace, and put your hands to do the connections in there. It's a lot of things, you know, that we as architect do a beautiful detail over here. We do a beautiful design intent, and sometimes it's not practical, and trying to resolve it and actually make it happen. Every time I go and drop off my mom in the airport, oh my God, baby, you're there. So I feel very proud of that. When I get to pass by in my car next to the projects that I was boots on the ground, I call them my babies, and I have a few there around the block. So
Mhm.
For me, it's a current project that we're currently working on. It's a guest house in Belize for a client of mine. So it's you know, getting out from Mexico. So it's like going into another country, another, you know, different culture. So it's going to be well, it's been already a you know, something new, and new opportunity for the business.
Beautiful. So we are getting close to the hour, and I like being really punctual. It's a pet peeve. All those years in construction kicked into me. But final words, final closing words, anything you'd like to leave everyone with for the future, for today, and where you are in your Latina story so far. And I'll start with Yvette.
You owe me coquito for this.
It's on.
Well, I think that I'm at a stage of my professional life where I am content, and I'm not content at a level of just being okay. I'm very happy where I am, but I have a lot to learn and a lot to give back. And I think that's where I am. I think that, you know, I have learned to a level that I am confident enough that I can say to others, hey, come this way, I'll help you. This is what I can teach you. This is what I can do for you. This is how I can support you. So it's all about giving back at this point, and just pushing forward for me at the same time. I'm not done. There's a lot that I still want to do. I mean, Monica, I hear you. I hear you 100%. So, and you know, it's funny. I can't share what it is. It's just today I received an amazing phone call before this panel about a promotion at work, and I can't share it. And I'm still like, oh, I want to say it here, but I can't
awesome.
just they haven't announced it. But again, this is the type of things that you know, I think I have arrived, but not in the, you know, stuck up way, but arrived in the sense like, okay, I'm confident I can now, you know, I can give back. I can mentor others in a more content and peaceful way. So anybody here, please reach out to me. I'll drop my email on the chat, really, because I know that it takes sometimes, it is hard. So
Yeah.
feel free to reach out with any questions. I say it from the bottom of my heart.
Monty, final thoughts.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks, Alicia. I think like reading the book was really great. Just it's like really remarkable just to see how like similar some of these stories were and how relatable they are. It's like really crazy just to see like we all, even though we all have like our separate stories, like there's like a common thread through all of them. And it's really interesting to see in like short spouts of everybody's like different stories of their lives. So that was really special to read. So thank you for putting that together. Yeah, I think like almost, you know, how Yvette says she's like found her spot. I feel almost like the opposite, where like I'm just learning, like, oh, like I think my true love is like the built environment. And thankfully that like architecture is the built environment. And so like I'm still trying to find my place where that is, whether it be in development or like actual architecture and design. But I'm just really glad that I like decided to get my license, and that's always something that I'll have, even if I do decide to become only a real estate developer or something like that, you know. But it's like a nice comfort to know that that's the case, and I'm just really glad that I did it. And I'm just glad that I'm part of a great community of people that, you know, encouraged me to do that.
Alicia Morales, what do you have for us?
Oh, absolutely. You know, to continue networking, and you know, even if you're not here in LA, you know, to network if you're outside of, you know, California, you know, to communicate, and because we're all colleagues at the end of the day, you know, no matter what. And yeah, stay in touch, and also just keep going and, you know, take the risk.
Ms. Tesla, what do you have for us?
Me gustaría conectar con todos ustedes.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Ahí vamos,
LinkedIn.
vamos.
En LinkedIn. Yo creo que es muy importante para nuestra cultura de tener un equipo de soporte, como somos aquí, todas la tenemos aquí, todos padecemos de los mismos síntomas y tenemos que darnos soporte unos al otro. Es la mejor manera de ayudar a nuestras nuevas generaciones y ser de ese ejemplo que realmente queremos ser. Lead by example.
Great. You hear that, Miss Miriam? We got you here. We heard you. Monica, what would you like to share with us?
Thank you. Hold on, I'm sharing my email real quick. Okay. And I had to write it down because I didn't want to forget. Like I'm going to start crying. Ay, qué chillona te digo. I'm super inspired by tonight and just like our sharing, and then like even just all the chats and like everyone kind of contributing, and like there's this energy and there's this like vibe, like vibration that's amazing, and I don't want it to stop. I want to know what's next. I want to know what's next for Latinas in architecture in Los Angeles, and I want to stay connected. So please, if Carmen, if let's kind of do other things with Latinas in architecture so we can keep it going. And Arquitina, for sure, I'm signing up. I'm gonna sign up to be on that as well. So.
Yay.
And last but not least, Alicia, tell us how you'd like to close out the night.
Oh, yeah, like Monica, I have to breathe and speak slowly. That's how I control myself from not crying. But I'm excited that we are starting our cohort 4 for Arquitina 2 years later. And we're talking about the fall, having multiple cohorts at different time zones, because right now everything is set for Central Standard Time. But since our network has grown, now we have to show more love across the country and connect more. But advice is really embrace your story, and part of it has shown me that a bit of it is being vulnerable, right? We've had to, the women in this book, they have been vulnerable, sharing their stories, and there's power in that. I've seen how these women are empowered to speak and to speak for others, and it's just an incredible thing. We are now talking about Latinas in Architecture Volume 2. So for any of you interested in sharing your story, which I highly encourage to do so, because even if it's just one person, one little girl, one boss, reading that story that can change the narrative and raise the 1%, then we've done our job, right? So I hope that we can all continue to just share the story and embrace your own, and let's continue to raise the 1% and lift as we climb. Thank you, Carmen, so much for this, and I'm just so happy to see all of you and know of you and your work, and it's just incredible.